Welcome back to the Two Blues podcast and to the latest edition of Two Blues Tuesday, where I am joined by my co-host, Mr. C Money Picks, to talk everything Chelsea, everything football, going into another big week. It seems like every week's a big week for Chelsea, but another big week. Hold on, bear with me. I'm just receiving a little bit of feedback from your microphone. I'm just muting Charms very quickly to see what's going on. I'm getting a lot of feedback. Hold on.
Oh, please.
Awful start to the podcast. Awful start. Right. We are here to talk everything Chelsea. Welcome to the Two Blues podcast. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. There is a slight audio delay, so I apologise if you are getting a little bit of a lag. Let us know. We will try and fix it, but until then, we're just going to keep going. Charms, before we get on to a big upcoming week, two games to start off a big month of April. And it was Tottenham and Brentford, two teams that we knew were going to be tricky, obviously coming out of an international break. I'd say on paper, the two hardest games of the month. But, I mean, if you'd have said to me 4 points out of those two games a week ago, probably, I would have taken it. I probably would have bitten your hand off in the process. But now we've played those two games and we've got those 4 points. Feels underwhelming, bro. Feels like we should have been going for the 6. I don't know why we were even not trying for maximum points.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with that. I think after the Tottenham game, I think that we could take a lot of positive out of that. And I know it's only Tottenham. I understand that. I know they have a terrible record at Stamford Bridge and whatnot. And it was probably a game we were bound to win, destined to win and whatnot, especially after the season they're having. But that Brentford game just stank of poor managerial decisions, particularly with that starting lineup. You sent me that starting lineup, which is something that you very rarely do, and was like, oh my God, Maresca's really bombing for one here, and he could get this sack after this, right? And I could understand it. In a must-win game, having Palmer on the bench, it doesn't scream of success to me. Having Christopher Nkunku, who's had a little bit of a torrid season. We can admit to that now. It's been up and down in parts, but I think the last 4 months, I think 2025 has been pretty unkind to Nkunku. So to have him starting there in a must-win game, it is questionable, particularly after the performance that he dropped of just having nothing other than a little battle with his own goalkeeper. It should be the other way around. And I'm not a big fan of the mental. I'm not a big fan of, at this point, the technical. I don't know. It's something we'll probably go into a little bit later. But I feel like a lot of the problem in that Brentford game came down to Maresca and came down to Nkunku, and I haven't been best pleased with either of them recently.
Well, that there, I mean, I think you said we'll touch on it later. We might as well touch on it now. It's a perfect little segue. Obviously, the title of today's episode, the thumbnail, is Nkunku's race run. Is his time up? I feel like as upset as it makes me, as frustrated as I get when I'm saying it, I feel like, yes, if it wasn't clear a couple of weeks ago, it is now. I feel like I have never seen a player, and you lot, if anybody's watching my shorts, you're going to hear this again later. I've never seen a player more mentally checked out. I have never seen a player that knows he's out the win, that knows he's out the door, that has nothing to play for, because at the end of the day, he's kind of already justified his price tag. Like, if you look at the first half of the season, and Nkunku was on 14 goals or some shit. He was one of our top, if not our top scorer. Obviously, 3 months down the line without having scored a goal, he's fallen a little bit behind. But he's still in double figures this season. He's still done bits in the Conference League. He's probably the Conference League top scorer. What has happened to Christopher Nkunku? Why has this decline of a player that we both know has the talent, has the ability, but he just has not been able to do it, whether it's in Chelsea or the Premier League? I'm not sure.
Yeah, and I think there's definitely a couple of things you can point to. I think that for me, the main one is in the Conference League. There is a very clear disparity of talent. I think that the teams that you play against in the Premier League and in the Conference League, it's apples to oranges. I would argue that a lot of teams in the Championship would have a good run in Europe. And I genuinely mean that. Teams like Burnley, teams like Leeds, teams like Sheffield, they would probably be on par with a Warsaw, these types of clubs. And I just feel like Nkunku looks good against teams where he should look good, based on the talent we've seen. And the other thing is, it's well documented, but he was bought to fill a position that ultimately got replaced quite immediately into his time in. So the last year, I think he's been trying to find a new position for him. But he is a 10. He is a creative midfielder. He's supposed to be that Odegaard in the team. He makes everything happen around him and that De Bruyne. But we've got Cole Palmer, and who better in the world in that role? I mean, I know he's been on a bit of a bad stretch of form recently, but my God, the player inside of Cole Palmer is 10 times the player of Christopher Nkunku, and we didn't expect that. I'm sure that this was just a happy accident, but with every silver lining, there's a cloud that is surrounding. I feel that the cloud in this case is Nkunku's career essentially, and if we could get him gone and take a 50 million for him, we take that 20 million cut, that 20 million loss. I wouldn't see it as a loss, because overall I'd pay another 40 million for a Cole Palmer again.
See, that I think is the main factor as to why I think he is so gone, is because I think Chelsea are very, very aware that this is one of the few players that they can recoup the money that they spent on him almost immediately. They can make, little to no loss on Christopher Nkunku, because 50 million, 60 million for a player of his quality in today's market is a pretty good fucking fee. But and I suppose this might be a bit of a superfluous question because you kind of did just answer it, but had Christopher Nkunku not got injured in pre-season against Borussia Dortmund, had we not signed Cole Palmer, would Christopher Nkunku had the same effect in the number 10 on Chelsea last season as Cole Palmer did?
I don't think so. I just think that Cole Palmer is the quality that he has. I think that obviously, not that we knew at the time that he had this amount of quality, but we definitely knew that the player that we were getting in from Man City is someone who's young, he's hungry, he wants to score goals, and potentially, I would have seen Cole Palmer as a second striker option, when he was brought in, particularly with how he was playing under Guardiola. But, coming into this Chelsea squad and finding his more midfield bag, his more inner Frank Lampard with the long range shooting and long range passing and really developing his game. I think that we've seen more development out of Cole Palmer than I think we've really ever seen in a 1 year stint out of a player like Christopher Nkunku. And not to say that he hasn't improved, because that's clear. But I think that, once again, the unexpected level of improvement from Cole Palmer is really what's came to detriment Nkunku, and that we would not maybe not seen that if he didn't get injured. So everything does happen for a reason. I think we are blessed to be in the situation that we're in. But once again, there's always got to be a little bit of give for the take. And I feel like in this case, it's just Christopher Nkunku. Overall, as a Chelsea fan, if he goes and we're able to recoup, 80%, 90% of the initial transfer fee, I'm not even mad. I'm really not.
But what do you think? And this is, again, a tough question to ask. What do you think is the root of this failure? Because at the end of the day, it is he hasn't lived up to the expectations. And while I wouldn't treat it as an awful transfer, because, like you said, we're going to be able to recoup the money. I think all in all, when you look at the goals he scored, the effect he's had, I don't think it's a bad move for anybody. I think it's great experience for him. A gamble for Chelsea that didn't pay off, but, wasn't us flushing 60 million down the drain. But let's not forget, this is a player that scored a hat-trick against Man City for Leipzig at the Etihad in the Champions League. He's done it on the biggest of stages, very rarely due to his injuries played for France. But even when he was, injured for 6 months throughout the year, he got top scorer in the Bundesliga. And this was, a Bundesliga filled with talent. There are exceptional players in the Bundesliga. Why do you think he has struggled so much for Chelsea?
It's really difficult. I think that football's a fickle game, and I think injuries ruin careers in many a way. They affect the player that you are, but they also affect your reliability in a squad. And you look at a player like Bukayo Saka, and I can't remember exactly who the player is, and that's who I've been trying to think of. I don't know if it was like a Nacho Monreal or someone, but they had a starting left back who got injured, which meant that a young Bukayo Saka, was drawn into the first team. And what he's been able to do at Arsenal over 5-6 years from them, he's the best player that they've had in years, and Yonks. And that's all down to an injury. That's all down to a mistake, a bad challenge coming in the Premier League. And that's created one of their best players. And it's essentially the same thing's happened at Chelsea. And what that can do to a player's mental, he's been out for a year on the injury bench watching a player just replace him. And when he's come back in, at the beginning of the season, it's okay, we're going to slowly wean you back into the squad. We're going to see what's happening. And we have to remember that there was serious questions asked about Nicholas Jackson in this time. Is he going to be our striker? Can he do it? Oh, just make Cole Palmer the striker and put Nkunku in behind him. You've got a fantastic player there. But it's just never really worked like that. And especially with Jackson kicking on, the creation that he has with Cole Palmer, it became invaluable, particularly in the first 3 months, 4 months. Nkunku sitting there scoring goals, bagging a hat-trick, thinking, I'm doing my best out here. I'm bagging in every game I'm playing. I'm looking great in every game I'm playing, and I'm not getting starts in the Premier League. This guy's gone 9 weeks in a row without a goal contribution, and he's starting ahead of me. This is affecting my mental, affecting my legacy, affecting my career. And now when he gets the call up, it's against Brentford. And Palmer's still on the bench, and it's only out of a rotation. It just feels like, in some ways, a line of disrespect. But if the Lukaku interview happens with Nkunku, I won't be surprised. He comes out and he talks about the troubles he's had at Chelsea and how he didn't really feel at home. I wouldn't be surprised about it because there's not really many things making him feel at home. I mean, I don't even know if he lives in London. It really doesn't feel like he has to.
I don't know. I feel like I don't really know if he can lay any blame anywhere but himself. I feel like with all due respect to Christopher Nkunku, I feel like more often than not, in the first half of the season, he was pinging in goals, he was taking his opportunities, and it was very much, look, at the end of the day, João Felix was similar to Nkunku, if not, could be arguably rightfully more pissed off. He was golden boy 2 years ago. He was signed for 120 million. So João Felix, I'd argue, could be more rightfully miffed that he's not getting minutes than Christopher Nkunku. But I would argue, I would go on the other side of that. And while I agree that it kind of helped his mental, I feel like the effect he was having on the team off the back of that long-term injury shows that he had the mental strength to come back and to perform and to do it. And I feel like even though we've never doubted his quality, and this is something I have echoed before in previous podcasts, but I just feel like he is such a specific type of luxury player. And you don't really hear that term luxury player bandied around anymore. But I would put Nkunku and João Felix in the exact same category as they play in that number 10 role when you already have two wide players that are going to create, one striker that is going to score, two centre midfielders that are going to hold it down. You don't need that that number 10, that second striker, that creative midfielder, whatever you want to call it. That role is kind of do whatever you want. That's the role that you hand to the Cole Palmer of the team. And I feel like that position exists only in certain leagues. And unfortunately, in the Premier League, it's just not the way in which the game is played, both the quality, the speed, the intensity. I feel like it's not something you can get away with. I feel like we've seen it. How many times have we seen, and bear with me, Kai Havertz was an exceptional footballer when he was at Bayer Leverkusen. And when the numbers he was putting up there and we were comparing him with Florian Wirtz, he was the next big thing. And then Timo Werner was bagging goals, finding a lot of space, great finishing, great composure. Christopher Nkunku, technically great player. Now we got Benjamin Sesko. I mean, 3 out of 4 of these are coming out of RB Leipzig, which if it tells you something, should tell you do not buy a fucking player from RB Leipzig again, unless his name's Xavi Simons. That one I'll let slide. But I just feel like this is the type of player, and feel free to rebuttal, but I feel like this type of player thrives in Germany and arguably Spain. But when they get to Italy, as we've seen with João Felix this season, and the Premier League with Christopher Nkunku this season, there's not enough space. They can't, they could be Lionel Messi with the ball at their feet. But if they're not strong enough and disciplined enough in terms of what they have to do out of possession, the work rate, we see Pedro Neto, 0 output in the last 2 months, but he works his fucking socks off and the Chelsea fans love him. Christopher Nkunku scored nothing, but his work rate fucking stinks.
It's weird, isn't it? Because I know where you're coming from, but at the same time, you have to look at the clubs they're going to. I mean, AC Milan have been in a torrid spell. They're a club that looks a shadow of how they were last year compared to this year. And, João Felix going over there, I don't think you can say it doesn't necessarily click for him in Italian football, because I think he looked all right, particularly in the first couple of weeks for AC Milan.
They hate him.
Why is that? Why is that? Is it the work rate? But
basically, yeah.
Shit, though. That's what I don't understand. They're shit. They're 10th in the Italian league. They got Sassuolo above them and shit like that, mate. I don't understand what's up with them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not watching them week in, week out, but the general consensus from the AC Milan fans is he's not good enough on the ball, and he does fuck all off it. And
Yeah,
that I do feel it.
I can hear that.
It's one of those where you can get away with more in a league like Spain and Germany when it's, the quick attacks, the transitions. It's all about your clips and can you fucking meg nut someone and can you trivella this ball. I feel like when you get to the, you know what, and as harsh as this is going to sound, it's like Ange Postecoglou. You can play the happy-go-lucky football in Australia and in Scotland, but when you come to a proper league, when you try and do it in a real fucking league, you realise that it's about the
Suicide ball don't
basics.
work.
It's
Yeah.
about 100%, bro. Is it like it's all fun and games being, happy-go-lucky, trying to have as much fun as possible. Oh, we want it to be entertaining, enjoyable. Fuck that, bro. Let's do what TT
Nah.
did and take it back to the basics, to the wins. I feel like Chelsea are looking too much on this flair side. They're looking to captivate audiences, to bring in these fans from all over the world. We're not even thinking about the 6 goals that we're shipping at the back, courtesy of fucking Robbo Sanchez, criminal fucking mastermind with Tosin and Badiashile in front of him. Like, I just, I don't know. I feel like maybe this is me just kind of being old-fashioned, traditional, skeptical bastard that I am, but I just feel like we're seeing too much of this. Except,
Listen,
like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Maresca's trying to reinvent the wheel. You get me?
do you know what this conversation reminds me of is you remember at the beginning of the season, my wife was going to Brazil and her dad had asked for a Man City top with Savinho on the back. And I remember at the time I told you, and you were like, who the fuck is Savinho? You're like, this guy is just random fan. But what's funny is 9 months removed from that, that's a very, very cultured, like relevant thing. You know what I mean? That's a very, like he's got a top with a player that now is someone relatively relevant. And I would look at it the same as getting a Chelsea top with Esteval on the back. You know, the minute that the next season comes in, everyone's going to laugh at you and be like, "What are you doing?" But give it 6-9 months removed of that, and that kid's got some serious highlight reels.
I'm doing it.
I'm telling you, I'm bloody there for it. I'm so there. The minute he's got his squad number and the new kit's out, I'm so in for it, mate.
I'm pretty sure
And
I
this
haven't
is
even
what
worn this on stream. I spent £70 and I haven't even worn it on stream. Go on, keep talking your shit.
my point is we got to have a little bit of faith when we like these players, when we love these players. There is a sense of question mark around them, and the flair player is always going to draw love and attention to you. And a player like Esteval, a player like Kendra, a player like Paez to some degree, they've got some flair. By the way, shout out! I know that Green from a mile away, nice Brazilian geezer. But listen,
come on,
shout
vamos!
out the boys, shout out Palmeiras. Vamos caralho, foda-se. But listen, yeah, man. I just feel like exactly like you're doing now, you got to support the boys even before they've landed. And they've done the same thing. And we're going to do the same thing next season. And sometimes the flair, it might not work technically, but it works emotionally. And this is an emotionally built sport. And if you've got a player that's playing their heart out and you've got an Adelta Rat on your QPR team, regardless of if you get the drop or not, you're going to remember that Adelta Rat for the rest of your life and what he did for that season. So we just got to look at the places. Sorry, we've got to look at the players and roll with the punches, and hopefully we strike gold. But listen, there's nothing wrong with a little bit of faith.
Yeah, we are a mad emotional club as well, so you can tell that is what they want as well, the fan base, and you can understand why the owners want to get players that are looking to get the fans off their seat. And yeah, Esteval Willian is 120% that player. Kendry Paez, you could lump in there. Training with Strasbourg already. Fucking fantastic to see that 17-year-old Kendry Paez, who has already spent time at Cobham, currently training with the team at Strasbourg. But we got a couple of people in the comments, so just very quickly, Amir, Seb, big up yourselves. We will get into your comments in a second. But before I do, because I feel like they may be encroaching a little bit on the question I'm about to ask. So Mr. C Money, it's been very, very publicly discussed that Chelsea are going to go in big for a striker in the summer. Regardless of what happens with Nicholas Jackson, we're going to get a number 9. In my heart, he's not the striker I would go for, but in my heart, I feel like we're going to go for Victor Osimhen. I feel like that's the natural solution, the natural option that's going to have less competition around him. I personally would be aiming for a Victor Gyökeres. But But I'm curious to hear what you think. Obviously, plenty of talented strikers around. Do we go for another Delap or Mora Dion, one of those type players, players that have been bandied around the 40 mil mark, or do we just suck it up and go big or go home? And if so, I mean, either way, who are you going for?
It's just weird because I feel like every time we go big or go home, we end up going home. I feel like with Lukaku, it happened. Havertz, it happened. Werner to some degree, even though he's probably more in that 40, 50 million pound price tag, he was supposed to be the next big thing. I just feel like, should we buy a Gyökeres or a Sesko? I feel like there's so much chance for it to go wrong, but I just can't afford a Samuel Moradion being mid. I can't afford another mid 40 million pound edge of the. Liam Delap stinks. I don't like him. I don't rate him that much. I rated him at the beginning of the season. This season, I'm not a fan. I think he's shown everything he can in the Premier League, and it's not, for me, good enough. That's just a personal opinion. But then again, I think Osimhen, as you said, it seems like the perfect progression. It feels like he's the right player for the job, and obviously, not only has he been linked for near enough 2 seasons now. The link with John Obi Mikel there, he's been very vocal about getting him into Chelsea. And, I'm a massive, massive fan of John Obi Mikel's out of football work, the way that he talks on the mic. I think that he's one of the only pundits that's willing to just wear his heart on his sleeve and just say what he wants to say without fear of persecution. And I like that. His comments about the AFCON in rebuttal to Jamie Carragher, I thought were bang on. And I like that. And, the way that he's saying that he thinks Osimhen's the right man for the job. He thinks he will bag goals. He thinks that that's what Chelsea need because Chelsea don't have a striker. He'll fucking say it how it is. All these other pundits, even Cundy and them, Nicholas Jackson's the man, Rory Jennings. Nicholas Jackson's a 30-goal a season striker. It's just nonsense, man. And we
don't mention that name over these sides, bro. You can mention anyone you want. But RJ,
the RJ is that Voldemort out here, blood. I'm telling you, man. As much as Nicholas Jackson.
Wait, what do they call him? What do they call him? He who must not be named.
Yeah, he must not be named.
That's it. From now on, that's who he is.
Yeah, he who must not be named has made comments that irritates the hell out of me about Victor Osimhen. Being on the similar level to Nicholas Jackson as a goal threat. I disagree. I think Osimhen's an absolute bagsman. I think he's got 25 goals in the Premier League in his first season, waiting for him to happen. With players like Nicholas Jackson next to him, if he does stay. Hopefully offer that left flank, because I love it when Jackson plays that left side with Osimhen up top, Palmer in the 10. It's 3 of the best 4 attackers in the Premier League. And if we can get that going, yeah, man, sexy football waiting.
So you're just out here, because I'm assuming Esteval's on the right, you're just out here ready to cut every single winger that we've got off the books.
Literally ready to trim all the fat.
No Maresca, no Neto.
Get rid of the lot, because the thing is, if you think about it, you have to have Jackson in that lineup. If you buy Osimhen, you have to have him in that lineup. And if you have Palmer, you have to have him in that lineup. Esteval gets 6 months of fitness and match confidence. He has to be in that lineup just based on his abilities. That front 4 is so scary. And, oh, man, it just fills me with joy to think that all of these players
are not saying this at the start of this season with Neto, Nkunku, Sancho, Palmer, Jackson. We were saying that front 4 is so scary. And it was scary for like 3 months, but then everyone, then the clocks went back and everyone was like, oh shit, it ain't dark no more. There's no motion at my front door. Well, go on.
It's mad, isn't it? It's weird. And then we did it the season before, to be fair, with Lukaku as well. But, let's just, it's true, man. We did. We said, now that we've got a real striker, it's all the same shit every year, man. But, we did it when Mudryk came in. He's the new best thing. He's the best player in Europe, all of this, the best young player in Europe. But, yeah, you got to have a little bit of faith, a little bit of delusion. But I just feel like Jackson's proven, Palmer's proven that somewhere we've never been before. To some degree, Esteval's proven, he's doing the exact same thing Neymar's doing. And I know Neymar could have done it in the Premier League because he's done it in the Champions League so many times. And he looks like the same thing. And the only real question is, will Nicholas Jackson stay fit and competent? And is Osimhen going to be able to bag goals in the Prem? And I think that you answer maybe even just one of those two. And yeah, you get exactly what we think is going to happen happening.
Yeah. I mean, so much of it, I suppose, does hinge on the next couple of months. If Jackson does get back into that scoring form, I think this, Chelsea hierarchy will be kind of remiss to undo 2 years hard work. Realistically, this is a guy that we had very, very few expectations for. on the face of it, I think he had an excellent season last season, you know, with all the criticism that he got. And then this year, I do feel like he's built on it. It might not seem like that because obviously he's had this extended injury, so his numbers might not kind of be on the same trajectory. But I do feel like he has 100% grown into his. I feel like he's a better player this year. He does more for the team. His all-round game has certainly improved. And even, I mean, I know he's not still, you know, he's no Didier Drogba, but even his chance taking and chance creation is better than it was last season. I think maybe he hasn't scored as many, but he's also missed far less as well. But it seems like that's the general consensus in the comments as well. Amir, you know, Seb says get him gone this summer. Amir says, yeah, he's useless these days. Regarding Nkunku, let him go. Now I have Jackson, who's better. There's only one name who can replace Nkunku. It would have to be Victor Osimhen, from the help from John Obi Mikel, if he's still willing to help us bring the big eagle into Stamford Bridge. I'm split on Victor Osimhen because I feel like 2 years ago, I didn't want him to come to Chelsea because I felt like he was the best striker in the world. Well, sorry, last season, the best striker in the world, bar Erling Haaland. And if he came to Chelsea while in that form, it would all just fall to pot immediately. And I do kind of have that gut feeling of I like him. I think he's excellent. I really want him to do well. Coming to Chelsea is probably not the best move for him. I feel like there's a lot of pressure. As soon as you walk through those doors, we haven't had an actual number 9 for a while. I feel like we have just kind of conceded that shirt, that number, that position for Chelsea is cursed. I would be more akin to go for someone like Victor Gyökeres purely for his experience in English football. And that is with Coventry in the Championship. And I do feel like that alone is a big factor for me for why I chose Gyökeres over Osimhen. And another factor, no disrespect to, you know, Osimhen or Galatasaray, he's doing it into the Turkish league, and Gyökeres is, you know, banging in goals at a consistent rate, even a better rate than last year in the Portuguese league. I'm not sure. I mean, I'd say the Portuguese league is slightly more. I'm talking about it like it's fucking one of the top 5 leagues. Obviously, the Portuguese league ain't all that, but at the same time, he's doing it in the Champions League as well. And I feel like he is ridiculously consistent. And I don't know whether that's just him kind of getting used to playing all the teams in Liga NOS. But yeah, what's your thoughts on Gyökeres? Because obviously Arsenal sniffing around him as well. 80 million seems to be the fee that people are talking about. I feel like both him and Osimhen, you know, regardless of where they go, I feel like they will both be on the move this summer, and potentially Isak as well.
Yeah, and I've heard Kvaratskhelia is already on the bounce. It feels like he's moved a season ago. But yeah, I mean that was rumours. I don't know if it was an April Fool's thing, but I definitely read something in the last week about him wanting to leave or having to leave or something about that. And obviously we know about KDB leaving the league and stuff. So there is definitely a lot of transfers. When it comes to strikers around the world, man, like, yeah, I think that Victor Gyökeres is a one-of-one talent. I think that being able to hold up the results that he does in you know, not only the Liga NOS, but in the Champions League is phenomenal. You know, his Champions League record is fantastic for a team that should pretty much be down and out against all the big sides. I feel like he's one of the only players that really likes to turn up. And yeah, you know, it's got that Bruno Fernandes trajectory to it. You know what I mean? He's got to go from a side where he's kind of a big fish in a small pond to being a small fish in a big pond. That and we've seen how well that's worked for Fernandes. Even in his struggling United, he's still been able to, over the last 4 years, become captain, hold down his position, and really lead the line. And I understand he's a midfielder, so there's more opportunities for like things like captaincy. But yeah, you know, a player like Victor Gyökeres, the goal scoring ability, as you said, the physicality he's already seen in the Premier League, and he's kept up to pace with it. I would say the Liga NOS is more similar to a championship than it is a Premier League. But obviously, we saw the madness that he did at Coventry, where he's able to really bring them into the Premier League. So, yeah, you know, I like him as a football player, and I think that he's probably a better striker than Victor Osimhen. But the figure that we're going to have to dig out for him, you know, it's probably going to be in the 110 million pound price tag, and I just don't think right now, especially with, you know, everything going on at Chelsea, you know, a bit of a UEFA investigation being undergoing. I don't know if we're really going to go and pull 100 million pounds out for a striker. So if not, a player like Victor Osimhen at Galatasaray, I'm pretty confident we can get for a fee like 70 million. If we don't, and it is still a 9-figure price tag, it has to be Victor Gyökeres. But at the same time, if it is going to be £100 million for Osimhen, I don't think we get either of them.
Yeah, I'm just trying to do a quick Squawka comparison matrix, but for some reason it just won't let me compare Victor Osimhen and Victor Gyökeres. Someone asked in the comments, how old is he? They're both 26. They are both the same age, so that gives us a nice little, in terms of longevity, you know, I think that's the sweet spot. You're getting in a player who's got a little bit of experience, a little bit of know-how, more so anyhow than the majority of this Chelsea team, but also they've got that longevity. That was the kind of what I refer to as Aston Villa's blueprint for recruitment in January. Signing Disasi, Rashford, Asensio, players with youth on their side. Obviously, they've got years to play, but also they have great amounts of experience for their age already. And I do feel like that's kind of what Chelsea needs. You know, regardless of who we go for, I'm not as against. Actually, you know what? I'm probably am as against Liam Delap as you. I think it's the wrong move. Not for the same reasons. I do think he's a very, very good player. But yeah, I don't think it's the right move for Chelsea. I think if we are going to go for a striker, no point going in and getting someone that isn't tried and tested. We need someone that's been there, done that in European competitions, top league levels across Europe, and also ideally international level, because we need someone who is able to pull themselves out the mud and to actually, you know, on the big stage. A lot of these Chelsea players don't have any experience. So it's one of those where I'd love to see us bring in somebody that, you know, is very much plug and play, can literally, you know, hit the ground running, fit into the system that we've got. But, you know, I do feel like that's still kind of a question for me. Is the system that Maresca plays. I'm a firm believer in the 4-2-3-1. I think that is the most balanced formation you can possibly get. You dominate the midfield. You've got everyone knows their jobs out wide. You know, you've got the solid back four. But Maresca, you know, a lot of chopping and changing. We saw a back three at the weekend. We saw Malo Gusto continually pulled into this inverted role, even though he really, really struggles. I'm not sure if it's a case of waiting to get the right striker in to fit the system, or we need to sort our system first. I'd be inclined to say the latter. I just feel like if we get a striker in the summer and the rest of the team isn't already set, it's just going to cause 2-3 more problems where the striker comes in and then we go, oh, well, he doesn't really link up with him. You know, he's not putting any balls into the box. So at this point, we're looking at, right, you know, we're for argument's sake, we're not, but for argument's sake, we've got 10 players out of 11. We go and get the 11th, and then all of a sudden, we're down to 8 out of 11 because the system's changed. Do you hear what I mean? I feel like, particularly with the 3-4 strikers that are available, I feel like they've all kind of got their own systems and got their own rhythms in the last few years, for sure, that doesn't really suit Chelsea.
Yeah, and you know, I think that especially when you're going off of, as you're essentially saying, players that fit different roles, fit different systems, and fit different play styles. You know, they'll have different players that can work off of them. You look at a player like Victor Osimhen, he loves the ball in behind, he loves the chase. You know, he doesn't like to do the hard work that a player like Nicholas Jackson would like to do. You know, when Nicholas Jackson is so down to get in and chase out a defender and take the ball and poach, and he's made something out of nothing. I see more of that out of a player like Victor Gyökeres than I do out of Victor Osimhen. I think that with Gyökeres, he's more likely to chase you down and hunt you and make you make a mistake. And, you know, against, you know, a weaker Man City where they just started this, who was it? You know, that Ukrainian centre-back who made like a couple of really bad mistakes on his debut. That's the exact type of thing that Gyökeres will pounce. Yeah, at City. I can't remember who it was. Kushunov, when he came in and he had a howler on his debut, you know, that is exactly the type of centre-back where Gyökeres is, before the game started, he's licking his lips thinking, I'm going to fucking apply some pressure on that kid. I'm going to make him make a mistake.
Just to combat one of the points you said earlier, so you said, obviously, if we get Osimhen in, you'd have Jackson on the left side. Would you not think that would be counterproductive? Because Osimhen is more of a waiting for crosses kind of guy. So you'd want Pedro Neto on the left putting balls into the box.
Exactly, and this is why it's such a labyrinth because you say something and you agree with it wholeheartedly. Really, like Jackson has to be on the left because he's so good at making things tick. But then that means you have Osimhen up top if we get him, who's probably less aggressive. So then they probably switch, but then you're not getting the most out of Osimhen. So it's just problem on problem. And you know, as I said, Gyökeres, is the player who probably fits the system the best. But the £40 million difference, the 50% difference in price tag is huge. Especially when money is so important at a club like Chelsea, where we're under. We feel like we're under the cosh when it comes to money. We spend 100 million, it has to fly. Who have you sold as well? Where are you getting this money from? What's happened? It doesn't happen with any other club where you make one purchase, everyone's zooming in and seeing how is it legally possible. So it's frustrating because I don't even know if we're going to be able to pull the trigger on these. But once again, I think there's definitely positives out of both, where Gyökeres will be willing to do the hard work, the dirty work. Fantastic. I like it. We already have a player that will do that in Jackson, so we won't need it. But if we do, I've said it 3 times over. It's a difficult situation to be in. Either way, we'll be happy with either or. We just need someone that's going to bag goals.
Fingers crossed, man. Fingers crossed, because it would be the most Chelsea thing ever to wait until the last week of the transfer window and then get an unknown 21-year-old like this dies out, whatever his name is, this Kazakhstani international that was 16 and had never played senior football. You can just see it happening. Another wonder kid. And you know what? And I hesitate to even bring it up because if it comes true, it's bullshit. There's no way it's true, but apparently Chelsea have been sniffing around Endrick. That would be the most Chelsea signing, to be like, we couldn't get him originally for 100 mil. Let's wait for him to have a shit season at Madrid and then get him for 40 mil. And let's see if we can recover him. That is the most Chelsea signing. I can already see it written in the stars. I pray it doesn't happen. But yeah, I mean, it seems like we're both in agreement that, Christopher Nkunku's race is run. And yeah, we do need a big physical presence, plug and play, proven goal scorer in the summer. And I don't think we're alone there. I think you could ask any Chelsea fan. I think 99.9999% of the fan base would agree with us that we do need that other striker. So let us know in the comments if there's any other suggestions. Obviously, Charms did mention Benjamin Sesko, although considering we've spent half an hour talking about the curse of the Bundesliga and RB Leipzig themselves, that there gives me reason enough to not sign Benjamin Sesko. As good of a footballer as I think he is, I just feel like you've got that potential for the Bundesliga, the RB Leipzig tax, the Red Bull tax. But looking ahead to the week, Charms, obviously big week, and mainly off the back of, well, hopefully you'd like to think a fully rested Chelsea team. We chose to rest Cucurella, Jackson, Cole Palmer. A lot of players were not utilised from the start at the weekend against Brentford. So surely you'd like to think very well placed to be going through to the next stage of the Conference League.
100%. I mean, it's the only thing, as I said earlier, I couldn't understand the team lineup other than maybe saving a little bit of fitness for a match, which will be very testy, will be very physical, it will be very demanding. We're playing against a club that wants to beat us probably more than any team we've played this season. A team that has everything, their whole season relying on this game. And obviously the first leg being away in Poland is going to be very difficult. But let's just see the war through and let's end this battle on top. It's going to be a war of attrition. And we can't just go in there thinking we're Chelsea, we're going to win this game 3-0. It's going to be easy, because it won't be. We need to go in there thinking you need to bag, you need to keep a clean sheet, Caicedo's got to play. We've got to do everything we can to make sure this team is fully functional and win.
Caicedo, you reckon?
I think we have to pull the big dogs out. He's been absolutely invaluable this season. I would argue he's the best 6 in the world, and I mean that wholeheartedly. I don't understand when people talk about Gravenberch being better than him just because his team's in a better position. If you slap Caicedo in that Liverpool team, they've probably got more points than they do now. So I think that we got to pull the big dogs out once again. Palmer's got to play, which is probably why he was benched. I know Caicedo played on the weekend, but he's got to be in there, in my opinion, at least on the bench for a rotational option. This is a must-win game, and because of that, I think we will win it, and I think we'll do it comfortably. I'm going to call it 2-0 is my prediction.
Get your predictions in the chat. Fingers crossed. I wish I was as confident as Mr. C Money. Unfortunately, and I think this won't go away until the final whistle of the second leg, is before I knew we were even drawn against them, I said about 3 months ago, I can see we're going to lose 1-0 to Legia Warsaw in the quarterfinal.
You did.
And now we're going up against Legia Warsaw in the quarterfinal. If anyone knows me, they know my commentator's curse is real. So I'm going to be watching on Thursday behind the sofa. I'm going to be watching with no fingernails. And then, yeah, we're going to the game next week. So fingers crossed we're in a nice position. So it's a nice, easy piss up going into Easter weekend. Because, yeah, I'll tell you what, if we lose against Legia Warsaw, one of the stands is getting something's getting set on fire in Stamford Bridge.
Yeah, I was going to say we'll have a new stadium.
Something's got to go, man. But let's stay conservative for now. Make sure you get your score predictions into the comment for later this week. But obviously, the main topic of conversation today, Christopher Nkunku, is his race run at Chelsea. Let us know in the comments. Make sure you vote on the poll as well. Do you think his career can be saved, or is it time to cut ties in the summer? Make sure to like, comment, subscribe to the Two Blues podcast if you haven't already. Charms, do you want to say something?
No, I'm just love being here. You know, this beautiful channel. I was going to ask what you thought about the Stamford Bridge move, but it felt like you were logging off. So,
no, go for it.
You got a minute.
I'm not in a rush. I just, I wanted to give people a little minute to get to the UCL, but yeah.
Come on now. No, I wanted to ask because obviously there's been rumblings about Chelsea moving. Obviously, the longest standing stadium in the Premier League, so much history behind it. You know, I can't imagine going to see Chelsea and then not having the Shed in my peripheral view. You know, it's a hard thought to leave our original stadium, and I've seen it with so many clubs. I've seen it with Arsenal. I've seen it with Tottenham growing up, but. You know, who is Arsenal? Who's Tottenham? This is Chelsea, man. And you know, we got so much heritage and history in that stadium. Do you want to move to the Yokohama Centre next to Craven Cottage? Not really, mate. I don't really like the idea of it. I think if you're going to do it, just refurb Stamford Bridge, but just because it is a bit of a shithole, but it's my shithole, you know what I mean?
That's the thing. I think we're landlocked in terms of actually increasing capacity. I just think it's going to be so difficult to get the planning permission to do it on the current site. It's one of those where if they do expand, you're looking at going from like 42,000 to 50,000. And then that's kind of obsolete in 2 years because they want to build another stadium that's 60, 80,000. If they do want that sort of stadium, yeah, 100% they've got to move. They've got to do it elsewhere because there's just not enough room at Stamford Bridge. That being said, we don't even get enough fucking actual match day going fans to fill 42,000. You know, half of them are tourists. So if it's going to be a case of doubling the stadium capacity and having twice as many people on hospitality tickets and twice as many tourists, I've got no interest. You look at Tottenham, they've got their fake sound, you know, the fake crowd noise. Liverpool got caught out the other day for doing their fake You'll Never Walk Alone, playing it over the speakers. I'm not like Chelsea have one of, if not the best away followings in the country. I'd love to be part of it. I'm not, but I can proudly say one of, if not the best away followings in the country. And that's been said up and down the country from, I've got, you know, Leeds fans, friends who are Leeds fans who will wholeheartedly agree. Home fans were supporting the, you know, arguably were supporting England. But away fans are superb. And if we can get more of those in, Chelsea have dedicated fans all over the world, man. The problem is raising ticket prices, reselling sites. If we move to a stadium, if we refurb, ticket prices are going to go up, bro. I have enough difficulty as is paying £63 to go and watch Chelsea. I turned down a ticket to Sunday. I'm in an hour and about going to the Ipswich game, but I'm not. I'm erring on the side of I'm not paying £63 to go and watch Chelsea play Ipswich because that's going to be training, train back, drinks. It's going to cost me a bill. I'd rather, you know, a game against Ipswich. I'd rather watch it at home and then do the match reaction. Like the atmosphere is just not there. And then for Chelsea, you know, the incentive is not there for a match going fan as is. And I feel like removing that atmosphere would just crush us even more.
Yeah, no, I agree. And, you know, it's something that I definitely have been thinking about more as I grow up. I remember going to Stamford Bridge as a kid and even up to going to Stamford Bridge as you know, a young teenager, seeing what's his name? Eden Hazard tearing it up and all of these players. I'd watch them and even the crowd was getting into it. Hey! And then, I mean, every time you'd beat a man or do something, and now it just feels lost. You know, it feels like you go there and that game against Fulham that I went to is the last game I went to at the Bridge, and you can probably say the same thing on the other side of the stadium. But when we went 1-0 up, it was like, where's the support? Who are we rallying? Where is the cheering? So my wife, and she's Brazilian, as I've said, and you know, she's used to these like non-stop chants for 90 minutes and fucking Mexican wave and this and that, and people throwing their tops, and she's like fucking quiet in here, innit? And I'm thinking, yeah, I know we're only 1-0 up, and I think we're a bit edgy because, like, we've lost this fixture before.
Your missus asked you to back your tits out of the football.
She's like, get your fucking Scoobies out. I'm sitting there like that and you waiting, man. But listen, yeah, I don't know. It's definitely. I understand both sides to it, but I just wanted to get your opinion because I don't want to leave, but yeah, because I just feel like the problems will not be fixed with what's going on. I think that what we need to do as a club is just the fans need to come together, and we need to understand that we've not been the greatest home support as of late. So 100%. I think the club would do a lot better from lowering ticket prices. I think it would actually affect results on the pitch because I think we'd actually get the true Chelsea fans going to the fixtures and not these stupid fucking posh wankers. Because last time I was there, I had some ginger twat in front of me who was making jokes about Chelsea the whole time. Not one person turned around and told them to shut up except for me. And it was just like, you do that at any other club in the country. You go to Millwall and talk about how their left backs underperforming. You leave with a black eye and a broken arm. Do that at Fratton Park to Portsmouth. You get the same thing. I don't know. It's just a frustrating time at the minute for it. In my opinion,
I hear you because I don't think anyone's asked me like face up, asked me that question, and I don't think I've answered it. And I also don't think I've felt as passionately about the issue until I was saying it. Until I was thinking, no, I don't want to leave. No, I don't know. I don't want to leave.
I don't want to leave.
It didn't hit that passion didn't hit until. Oh, so now fair enough, and I appreciate you delving into that because that's something that we haven't really got into. But maybe when there's a few more developments, we might get an actual full stream going where we could get people on both sides. Maybe we'll get a few more people involved. But we have got a lot of good content for you. We've got 2 good episode ideas. Obviously, number 1, Charms mentioned it earlier. KDB. Leaving Man City at the end of this season. So towards the end of the year, we will be doing a video on where he ranks in terms of Premier League midfielders, both all-time and creative only. Because, there's no way I'm putting KDB above Makalele and Essien, brother. Are you dumb? There's a trio of little Chelsea CDMs in there before KDB. But that's an episode for later in the season. We're also going to get onto why Virgil van Dijk is categorically, factually, empirically the most overrated footballer in the history of football. I've had enough. I've made my decision. The Fulham game showed me enough. Tosin is better than Van Dijk. I am a better centre-back than Van Dijk. This guy has coasted through the... Bruv, I'm telling you, we're going to watch him so closely this episode. This guy has coasted of Konate, Gomez, Tsimikas his whole career. Every time Liverpool concede, Matip's had a bad game. Every time Liverpool concede, Gomez had a bad game. Konate's had a game. What's the constant? What's the one common denominator? Virgil van fucking Dijk runs away from him and sends him to his other centre-back partner and then just throws in a cheeky elbow. 6 elbows a season is a horrible average.
You know the worst bit as well? Such an aura merchant as well. Like, you remember that one season where he had where he was like only 3 completed dribbles around him. It's like, yeah, because he's just stood on the edge of the box the whole game. No one gets
also, bro, he has a soul patch. He has a soul patch.
Yeah,
no one has a soul patch and has aura.
Yeah, it's fact.
Bro!
Fact. I've been there, man. I was auraless, bro.
Bro, honestly, I genuinely can't believe how nobody sees this little fucking... Oh, God, I don't get it. I don't get it, bro. I don't get it. Anyway, Amir, unfortunately not tonight. Unfortunately, we want to enjoy our evenings because Mr. C Money does not get many evenings off. So we will not be watching on a live watch along tonight. However, I might do something on the TikTok later. Stay tuned. Make sure you're following at 2 Blues Podcast on the Instagram, on the TikTok, and the YouTube. Because if you don't turn your notifications on for all 3, you don't know when we go live. So make sure you're following all of us. Amir, Seb, appreciate you, my guys. Anybody else that's tuned in, appreciate you as well. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe to the channel, and we will see you back on Thursday for a live match reaction to Chelsea Legia Warsaw. And then on Friday, we've got to chop it out with Charms. And you know what? There might be a little lone watch sprinkled in there as well. Either way, plenty of content for you this week. Big up you lot. Appreciate everybody. Up the fucking Chelsea.